Welcome to this evening's Cleveland Heights City Council Committee of the Whole. Clerk Ballister, please take the roll.
Cobb.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Posh.
Here.
DeWitt Foy.
Here.
Cohen.
Here.
Kuda.
Here.
President Kuda and Councilor Posh are both on Zoom this evening, but they will be able to vote or whatever comes up during the evening. Also, this very special beginning to our meeting, we're all excited about it. The Cleveland International Film Festival returns to celebrate its 50th year. 50 years at the spot it began, our very own Cedar Lee Theater. Our guests this evening are Bruce Hennis, this festival executive director Hermione Malone, and board chair Joe Marinucci. So the floor is yours. You have the presentation.
Thank you so much for the invitation and the warm welcome. We really appreciate it. My name is Hermione Malone, Executive Director of the Cleveland International Film Festival, and we are racing toward this year's festival, which is going to be April 9th through the 18th. We are returning to the Cedar Lee for some screenings this year as an homage to our very beginnings. Just a couple of quick notes for those who might not be familiar. We were founded in 1977 by John Foreman, who currently owns the Cedar Lee Theater. We are one of only 2 Oscar qualifying film festivals in the state, and there are actually 62 film festivals of some sort in the state of Ohio. We've been ranked in a lot of publications, but this year we scored one of 50 film festivals worth the entry fee, which is a nod to the filmmakers that we are a festival of high quality. And besides that 10-day event in the spring, we offer a media literacy program to schools throughout the year called Film Slam Streams. The films are grouped by curriculum type, and study guides are created by our team that accompany each of those films. And during the festival, the students actually come to the festival for a live Film Slam version. I wanted to start off by giving you a couple of important dates in general about the festival. So what we call our film program, which is the list of every film, when it's going to show, where it's going to show, will go live on March the 2nd. On the 18th, tickets go on sale to the general public. Before that, there's a window where major donors and members are allowed to snag tickets. And then opening night is going to be April 9th down at Playhouse Square. So from the 10th through the 18th, those are days that there will be activity happening at the Cedar Lee Theater, in addition to Playhouse Square and the CSU School of Film. So deep diving into the programming at the Cedar Lee, the mornings of April 13th through the 17th is the student programming, grades 5 through 12. That is the Film Slam program. There will be one pilot we'll do for younger grades, K through 4, but that'll be down at Playhouse Square on the first Friday. I wanted to make a note about this because this might be of interest to the city just in terms of traffic. So the plan is we will have teams of bus escorts meeting the students who'll get dropped off right in front of the Cedar Lee, and then the buses will go and park at that ancillary lot off of Cedar Road, where they'll stay until the films are over, and they'll come back and we'll get the students out school by school. There are 106 screenings that will take place at the Cedar Lee alone, including our members only screening. So this is a perk of membership we are bringing back this year, where if you are a member, there will be 3 films over the course of the festival that only members can access. So a pretty exciting feature for the membership, and also it's nice that all of those things will be happening at the Cedar Lee. There is some opportunity for additional programming along that Lee Road corridor, which I'll talk about in just a second. But this is activity at the theater itself. So attached to the festival are lots of other programs. Opening night, which is sponsored by Dollar Bank, will be at the, that should say the State Theater, my apologies, at Playhouse Square. We have multiple filmmaker night out receptions throughout the course of the festival. So many filmmakers come. Last year we had almost 200 that come from all over the country and world, that we like to have some opportunity for them to interact with each other. we've actually seen a couple of projects come from this. So filmmakers meet each other at a festival, they start talking, and they can co-create a project or a film down the line. April 13th, 1977 was the initial first day of the Cleveland International Film Festival. So we're gonna have some birthday surprises on April 13th this year, which is the Monday of the festival. And then we're doing a fun event near the end of the festival called Spill the Tea. We're gonna do a bit of a tea party with John Foreman and Alan Glazin, who will swap some stories about their early days, getting the festival up and going. And it's gonna be moderated by Ann Elder, who is a local Emmy Award-winning screenwriter, producer, and actress. She's a lot of fun. This event, I think, is gonna be a lot of fun. And our plan is that this happens as well on Lee Road. So we're working with Chef Bob at Sophie La Gourmand to host it there potentially. And then there's this category of programming we call Films Plus. So these are non-screening based programs. They are open to filmmakers, film arts creatives, and also members of the general public. So think panels, think workshops on topical issues and on technical issues. So a Foley demonstration, for example, which relates to special effects, will be a part of that. So we've had some engagement with Carolyn at the Cedar Lee Arts District, your SID, and we've had a couple of conversations. So she's very interested in helping to field some volunteer ambassadors who will act as navigators if folks are coming from parking lots, trying to look for things, suggesting what might still be open if you want to grab a coffee or a sandwich. There's some fencing behind Cedar Lee that's kind of an opportunity, she said, to maybe spruce it up. So we'll see what that looks like. We've talked about partnering with the retail businesses along Lee Road as pickup sites for our paper film guide. And then potentially working with some businesses for post-screening events. So I'll give you one example. I cannot tell you the names of any of the films, but I can say that there's a film that relates to cheese. And the filmmaker has been in conversation with the cheese shop on Lee Road, who's very, very interested in doing some sort of event post that screening. So that is an opportunity. We've been in conversations with a wine stop about having a filmmaker night out there as well. So we're trying to engage as much as we can with the businesses along the corridor. One of the other notes in the SID conversation that we had is this recommendation of grab and go items. So I call power users of the festival are people who will come and they will stay all day. They will see 3 and 4 films, and they usually don't have that much time in between. So with a lot of restaurants, we like to recommend if there's something that's fast, where somebody can get it and walk out of the door and eat it on their way back or something like that, those are always great things to have. And as folks develop those items, we're more than happy to include that on our website. It's like, hey, while you're in the district, here are some places you can stop in for a coffee, a drink, a sandwich, a snack. I made this note about attendance being tricky. So with split locations, it's really hard for me to guess how many people might be along the corridor at any given point in time. We'll have a better sense of prognostication once tickets go on sale, because then we can kind of see, are people heavily leaning towards the Cedar Lee for some screenings more than Playhouse Square. We also always know that weekends are the times that we surge. So for any of those businesses along the corridor, weekends would probably be a time where you might have some foot traffic, particularly if the weather's really nice outside while people are waiting out their screenings. I have time to answer questions. I went through that pretty quickly, but I know you have a packed agenda. Yes.
Marianne, 2 questions. First of all, have you discussed the parking situation with the merchants in terms of getting an idea of what you can promote for where people can go to park?
Yeah, I think we're going to direct people to the marked public lots. So this may mean folks walk a bit of a way. We will be cognizant to kind of advise folks to not create a parking nuisance for residents. The district is smack in the middle of a neighborhood, and so we want to be cognizant that not only are there people that live here, but there are also other businesses. Our best estimate is that during the week, the garage and that surface lot right off of Cedar should be decently fine. I know there's a lot behind the strip of businesses, which I think like Stone Evidence and all those things. But I'm also cognizant that those businesses' customers need to go there. So we won't recommend, that people go there. I think the weekends is when people will find themselves having to park a little farther afield to get in. But that's the conversation we've had up to this point. If there are other thoughts or recommendations, we'd be happy to take them.
Councillor DeWitt Foy, go ahead.
Thank you. One thought would be connecting with the high school right across the street. On the weekend specifically, they may have some capacity.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Cohen.
Grade school.
Yeah, so that was another thought I had, but also in terms of partnerships, so you mentioned dropping the film guides at businesses on Cedar Lee, the libraries, certainly
Yeah.
locally, I think would be a great
We
spot.
typically do libraries, we drop ship to Cuyahoga County libraries and then they kind of fan them out for us. But yes, libraries are,
Well, just for Cleveland Heights and University Heights Libraries is a separate system from the county library, so if you can connect with that, that'll get, I think, to our residents. And then the school district actually has Building Heights, which is a student
oh yeah.
film. Yeah, so I just want to make sure, because those film maker receptions seem like something that'd be great to get the kids to, in addition to the.
There's usually alcohol involved.
Okay, so maybe not.
I'm not sure I'd recommend
Or
that.
something, or something for the kid, with all the filmmakers in town, that seems like such an opportunity.
Yeah, I would say the public program schedule, which is open to the public, would probably be the better route for the Building Heights students. I mean, as well, outside of school hours, if they come to screenings where there will be filmmakers, they can definitely ask them questions. The filmmakers are great. I have seen people because we've got to clear a theater, walk with these people for a couple of blocks, in a conversation. So they're very generous with their time, while they're here, because usually they're so excited that people like, their work. So,
This
and
is
I know
wonderful.
Jen Holland, so yeah.
Okay, good.
Bruce, go ahead.
Gail, if the city could use every effort it can make to get the employees not to park in the spots they're currently parking in and get them to take the further ones out, maybe around the high school, that would go a long way to freeing up a lot of spaces, number one, and it would really send a message out to the larger community that Cleveland Heights is welcoming the film festival. We're doing everything possible. But that's probably gonna take more than just someone from the CID making that plea. It may need to come from some people in this room to say, gee, for 10 days, just please don't take up those close-in spaces.
Mayor Petrus or President Kuda, any thoughts on that?
I mean, we could certainly explore it. So I'll try to think about ways that we might be able to work with the businesses to encourage folks to choose some other options.
President Kuda, are you there?
Nothing.
Okay, go ahead.
Just one more suggestion, we may want to work with the communications department to get out information around that there would be increased traffic and particularly buses and all of that, just to let people know what's happening in case they go to Lee Road.
We're gonna bring
Oh, there you
Director
are.
Shawns
Hello.
into this
Yes.
because I think that one of the things we're looking for also is very heavy promotion of the event, especially starting now and building up to it. And that's gonna be extremely important for our Cleveland Heights residents to see that we're first here.
Yeah, agreed. I'll make sure you have my email and my cell number before you go so we can be in close contact.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Director.
Is our elevator in the public garage working? No.
My understanding is that it's not, but the city administrator and I talked about this today.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, more of a comment. Thank you so much. I can't convey how excited I am that this is coming back to Cleveland Heights. I love the poster. It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to get out there and sell it to people so that more people come in.
I appreciate that. We're excited to be able to sort of mark this major milestone back where we started, and John and his team have been really incredible partners. So
Hermine, I want to ask you a question. I remember in years past, there were discounts that your sponsors were able to offer to their customers. A small discount.
it's $1, yeah.
It was
The
$1.
code, It's still a thing.
Okay, I certainly don't want to commit you to anything right now, but might there be a way for the city of Cleveland Heights to make that discount or some kind of discount available to all of their residents?
We could probably talk about that.
All right. Thank you so much. It's going to be very exciting these next few months. And if you need anything from us, please let us know.
Thank you again for the invitation and the time, I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Maria.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thanks, Chris. You too. I'll talk to you later. Craig, call me.
Oh, my pleasure, thank you.
All right, folks, we're gonna move into the legislative review. Just give me a moment to get my legislation, please. Be starting with first readings, approval requested. Ordinance number 034-2026, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the sale of 3 improved parcels of residential real property located within the city to the Cuyahoga County Land Revitalization Corporation and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure. Any questions on this one? Go
Just
ahead.
real quick, so I do have a memo for this I sent you guys, that I just received from Brian Anderson. This is on first reading consideration of adoption requested, but on the memo, it says that it's just for first reading only, so I'm trying to get clarification on that.
Okay,
So we may move it to first reading only, but I
you should know by 7:30.
yes.
All right, thank you, Clerk Ballas. So on to the next one. Resolution number 035-2026. A resolution authorizing an agreement with Chagrin Valley Dispatch for the purchase of in-car and portable radios for 9 2025 Ford utility covered police interceptors for the police department and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure. Any comments on this one? This is both the 5 police cruisers that were purchased as in improving the fleet, so we're increasing good cars for the fleet, and the 4 that are for the violence prevention program, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Anybody on Zoom have any questions? You good? Okay. Resolution number 036, resolution authorizing amendment to existing agreement with ADP Inc. for payroll processing services for the city's finance department and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure.
And I just handed you guys a memo on that one.
All right, I'm gonna take the mayor's question first and then Councilor Posh, go ahead.
Okay, so for clarification, I wanted to add that the memo references $218,000. That is the total cost of the existing contract plus the add-on. So the add-on is $38,000. And so that will enable our timekeeping system to talk more closely with the payroll system.
Councilor Posh?
So just to clarify, the only thing that we're really okaying is a contract increase of $30-some thousand.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, and the law department suggested that this go before council because the overall value would be over 50,000.
Are you using the ADP system already, or is that still?
We are still working on the implementation.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Do we have the ADP time clocks in place?
So this is for ADP time clocks. So
Okay.
currently we have time clocks from a different vendor and those do not communicate with ADP. And so this will enable them to send data into the payroll system.
So I would assume the old time clocks are still feeding into the old payroll system so that people get paid properly.
The existing time clocks are not being used by staff.
So they're filling out manual time cards? Okay, it sounds like a really good deal.
I was gonna say, seems like it's worth the investment, yeah.
Needs to happen. Any other questions on this one? All right, going to first readings only. Resolution number 037-2026, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into agreement with Bear Equipment Best Equipment Company for the acquisition of Peterson TL3 Lightning Loader, AKA a claw truck, for the refuse division of the Department of Public Works, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure. Any comments on that one? It's budgeted and Director Klingscale has provided the budget number, the fund number that we need for that expenditure. Go ahead, Councilor
My only question is, how long will it take to actually receive it once we order it?
Well, they have one in stock, that's why we put it through as an emergency so that we can confirm the order and that we will be able to get it right away.
Nice.
Well, it's on first reading without approval, so if they want it approved tonight, then we need to shift it. Is that, you mean emergency for approval tonight?
No, just, once it's approved on second reading, then we
Okay.
can move forward with the purchase.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you for clarifying that, Councilor Coley. Any other comments on that one? All right, we've completed page 2. On to page 3. Resolution number 38-2026. Resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Urban SDK for the provision of geospatial AI solutions and roadway data in support of the city's safety, planning, and operational analysis initiatives, and declaring the necessity this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure. This is also on first reading only. Do I have any questions on this? Go ahead.
I'll just mention that when we received this, I asked for, since it's only on first reading, I requested a memo and the contract. We received that via email. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but we have till next council meeting.
I'd also like to assign, President Kuda, let me know if it sounds okay, assign it to the Public Safety and Health Committee, Councilor Posh, because you meet on the 23rd and then therefore you meet before the next council meeting. Does that make sense?
I think that makes sense to me.
So it's all right with Councilor Posh?
Sure, that's fine. That sounds great.
All right, thank you.
I would just ask, since they're in the room, if either of the directors wanna add anything to that, to clarify how we're using this or, the purpose of this.
Well, I did respond to Councilor Cohen's request asking for copy of the agreement. And in that response, I did note that how we use it in the Department of Public Works, how planning is using it, and how our police department will be able to use it. Basically, it tracks speed. And the way it tracks speed is that anything in a car that pings on a satellite, it's able to track the speed. So if you have OnStar, if you have Apple Play, if you have Maps, anything in a car that would ping off a satellite, it could gather speed off of that. And then how we use it in Public Works is if we're gonna resurface a street and folks have been complaining about speed on that street, we could look to see, in fact, if there is speed on the street, where it occurs in the street, like what block it occurs on and what time of day it occurs on, to determine whether or not we want to implement some type of speed table or speed sign as part of our project. That's how we use it. And also when folks complain about speed on the street, we're able to actually confirm whether or not there is really a speed going on the street. And the way the police department can use it is if they get complaints or if they want to set up a speed detail, it will give information as to where speed is occurring in case they want to put a police officer or something on the street.
Thanks.
Does the data that's collected identify who's driving the car?
No, it
or
doesn't.
Vehicle, so it is basically a mass that's being assessed for how fast it's going.
Right. It doesn't collect who the driver is or any information like that.
Anybody else? Oh, Councilor Posh?
So I actually was working on the agenda for the Public Safety Committee meeting, and I know the mayor is there, and I just kind of want to acknowledge this. This was actually on my list, traffic safety list, that I was gonna ask the mayor to prepare for. I'm out all day, I don't know if anybody's replied to an email, it's probably way too soon for that. But this is something that's been on our radar, and I'd love the opportunity to discuss it in our committee on the 23rd at some point. So I'll make sure it gets on the agenda and we'll take it from there.
Would you like to invite any director to that meeting so that they can answer any questions as well, or?
Well, that was the notion of my email to
Okay.
the mayor. You know, I think right now at this point, all this is, it's my opinion, when we're making committee invites, it's really going through the mayor's office.
Okay,
At least that's what I've been, that's sort of what I've been doing.
okay. Any other comments on this particular legislation? All right. We have, for second readings this evening, resolution number 28-2026, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Green Home Solutions LLC, a certified lead abatement contractor for the use of Lead Safe Ohio. Grant funds in connection with the abatement of lead-based paint hazards at the home located upon permanent parcel number 684-01117, providing compensation therefore and declaring necessity that this legislation becomes immediately effective as an emergency measure. We did have some questions when this was first read, so I'd like to know if anybody has any questions at this point in time that they would like to have answered. Council? Okay.
So
Mary,
if I could add something, so we had a couple meetings internally and my understanding is that we are about to move on to a new pot of funding for these programs. And so our intention is to require a matching component of some sort from everyone who is looking to benefit from this money going forward.
Where will that new pot of money come from? Do you think the state or county?
I have to turn to the staff.
It'd be partially HUD funding, and then we're contemplating using the local ARPA funds to elevate the cap there. Because the HUD funding is much smaller cap.
So you'll catch us up on where we are on the lead programs through ARPA when you have your presentation in a few minutes. Or
Yeah.
Might be longer than a few minutes. That's our intent this evening. Anybody else? Okay. Also on second reading, resolution number 032-2026. A resolution providing for a contribution in support of the Heights Schools Foundation's Fitness Under the Lights event, and declaring necessity this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure. Any questions? Councilor Cohen.
I had asked at the last meeting where this would come out of the budget from, and I know we got an email from the finance committee follow-up, but I didn't see this response, and I might have missed it, but was there a determination where this, yeah.
I'll take it.
Or you want to interrupt? Go ahead and interrupt when you get an answer.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just gonna do the consent. Anybody else have any questions on that
I
particular?
have it. Sorry, general fund, general operation, discretionary line 101.2108.2036.
Whose discretionary line, I guess, is that?
General operations, is that technically within the mayor's office or no? I don't know.
President Kuda.
Can you remind me how much this is for?
15,000.
Oh, okay, I remember now. Thank you.
I could reach out to the finance department and see if they have additional info. For sure.
I guess the question is this taking away, since it wasn't budgeted, is it taking away from something else, or is it in a fund where there is discretionary dollars available?
And it's not council's budget.
And it's not council's budget, correct?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and read the consent agenda items. Resolution number 039-2026, resolution recognizing March 2026 as Red Cross Month in the city of Cleveland Heights and declaring necessity this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure. Any comments on that? And resolution number 40-2026, a resolution recognizing March 2026 as Women's History Month and March 8th, 2025 2026 as International Women's Day and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective as an emergency measure. Any comments on that? Okay, that completes our legislative review. Now, we are going to ask Brian Iorio to give us an update on ARPA. Please.
Cheat sheet there. Alright, so thanks for having me, everyone. This is our, I don't know, fourth or fifth ARPA update. So as you know, what I do is I take the last one and kind of update it, but there's a few questions council had that I specifically tried to address in here. So I'll breeze through some of the early stuff because you've all seen it before. Feel free to stop me if you're going. So in summary, $38.17 million was allocated to the city. These are the general categories, which you don't see here as admin. That'd be the big difference if you added all that up. As of February 2nd, 86% of ARPA funds have been expended.
What percentage?
86.
86%?
So
Okay.
a big jump from the last update. That's normal because at the end of the year, you're cleaning up all. Sewer and water, 91% of those funds have been expended. So as you can see, this is a map that you've seen before, but we removed some of the non-ARPA funding. Gives you an idea of where the funding was spent, pretty much all over the city. Parking garages, one is complete, as you know, the other one is in process. 62% of those funds have been spent. Coventry should be done, obviously, at some point this year. You can jump in if you want. Public safety, a lot of this hasn't changed. The big 86% of these funds have been spent. The big one is the surveillance camera equipment line item. So those will be spent shortly, I would assume. But we can follow up if there's any specific questions about that project. Parks and Rec, 89% of funds have been. So I don't know who's winning. Colette's winning. 91%. But they're pretty close. Sorry. So 89% of those funds have been spent. Big investments in Kane Park and Dennison Park. All these projects are complete except for Kane Park bathrooms, which are expected to be done in the fall. And Kane Park Hill seating is spring, and Kane Park seating. So these two, the seating for the amphitheater and then the seating for the hill will resume once the weather allows it. Housing assistance, this one's a little complicated because there's a big pot of money that's actual ARPA, and then there's a big pot of money that's revenue replacement general fund. So they're not all in the same place, so it's a little cumbersome to kind of keep track of it all together. But these are the amounts that have been expended. Keep in mind that Let's Say programming has purposely been reserved for future spending, and that's almost all revenue replacement. All of it's encumbered that isn't, that's actual ARPA, but I think it's only like $20,000 left that needs to be spent on that.
So Mr. Iorio, the Let's Say that is included in revenue replacement would be what portion of that? Is it the
So this is-
600,000 right there?
Yeah, 600,000 is
So you will spend that last, I would assume.
right.
Okay.
And the majority of this that isn't revenue replacement, so out of the 400,000, 300,000 is for the lead clearance. So we have a decent amount of that spent, and we have plans to accelerate this. So this is the overall, Let's Say programming that we've talked about. 800,000 from the state of Ohio through the Board of Health. 492 from the state of Ohio through the Cuyahoga County Department of Development. And then 526 directly from the state. All of this is encumbered, all of it's about to be done. We're hoping by the end of April, all of it will be expended, all the projects will be complete. That's a crazy amount of work when we normally only do like $300,000 worth of work a year, so Zach from HBO is here, he's a large reason why that got done. And I think I said at the last update, I mentioned it to council since then, we were at risk of losing some of these funds. All of these contracts have been extended. So we're not at risk of returning it. There's another $500,000, this is the council allocated amount. And $500,000. So we purposely save those, the grants will be spent first before the payment. Down payment assistance, HRSC is moving forward with this program. 10 home buyers have been assisted. Later on, I'll go into like where some of these buyers are. And this is a little summary of the HPO programs that are funded, so and HRSC. So HRSC, we have a city exterior home repair programs, a garage repair program for your neighbor, dangerous tree program, and concrete is program for sidewalks and community investment fund, third-party business assistance programs. Most of its money, however, it hasn't awarded any funds yet. Most of that money was to fund the fund. They've received over 60 applications, and it's likely that 25 to 30 businesses will be funded. We don't know where those are yet, so they're not calculated because we try to do a little bit of a geography breakdown. Business assistance program, this is where the NABA funding is, the Noble Area Business Association. Funds are coming from, that hasn't been expended yet, they're still in the middle of working out the contract.
If I could add something, there was an agreement today between the city and NAMA.
Fabulous.
Fresh off the presses.
I'm sorry?
Fresh off the presses.
Actually, because of Director Hannah's help, I don't wanna steal his thunder. He was the one doing the work, not me.
And quick question on that, did it have the safeguards that council had discussed?
Yes,
Okay,
you're talking about the sort of related party transactions provisions?
right,
Yes,
okay.
yeah, yes, they're all there.
Does that mean that we're gonna be in a position to proceed next with Taylor Road legislation and funding them?
That was a part of the message that we received about putting NABA to rest was Taylor is next.
Okay.
So the Economic Development Department is gonna have a meeting with the executive director, and I don't know if anyone else from NABA will be participating or not, but after the agreement is signed, the NABA agreement, and before the first disbursement is made, they're gonna meet to just review the budget and all the activities and so forth. And I think in that same meeting, then they're gonna walk through the proposed Taylor budget and the approach to that agreement so that hopefully that process is a lot more streamlined.
Thank you.
Last on here is planning studies, all three of these have been complete. And we're rounding up, paying out on all. Nonprofit assistance. Alex from there.
Good job, Jim.
These residents.
That's the fun part of the job.
That's the best part.
61% of nonprofit assistance has been expended. Here's a little breakdown of what has been expended. This one's about to happen, this Cleveland Heights Improvement Corporation, the CIC, so that'll be a big chunk taken off of there. There's a few nonprofits that we'll have to touch base with in the next coming month or two to make sure they're on track. But so far, so good. Several of them spent all their fun. Reaching Heights, I think Building Heights, Heights Libraries, Benjamin Rooms. So this is council has to sort of summarize investments in the Noble Corridor. So what's difficult about this exercise is a lot of projects really affect the whole city, so we're not gonna pull out a portion of that project. Another big thing that's hard is the sewer and water. So when these projects are let, they're let for multiple locations throughout the city, and Director Kalinsky was saying that a lot of the combined sewer overflows are located in the south side of the city, so it's gonna skew to the south side of the city because for that reason, but there's still a significant amount of investment in the northern part of the city. And we can go through and try to parse out which costs are related to which specific sewers between now and the next update. But what I did here, and I should start with how do I define the mobile area? Basically, I just took North Taylor, anything east and anything north of Mayfield. I know there's a lot of different definitions, but this is sort of getting a idea of how much money was spent in the north part of the city. So some of these are park investments that are directly, Denison Park. We parsed out what was from the exterior maintenance, DPA, that sort of thing, and those expenses are in this column here. Some of the planning studies, and then some of the nonprofits are located in that area, so I put them.
Are we gonna get a copy of this presentation? Cause that particular page would be very useful to us.
Yeah,
And it's
well,
posted as well.
And keep in mind, this is a work in progress.
Yeah.
The next time you see this, there's gonna be a lot more associated with that.
Okay, thank you.
Quick
Councilor Collins.
question. I know we haven't dispersed the business economic assistance yet.
So that was
Is that going to be done on an equitable
You can admit it.
basis? So will it be a certain allocation for businesses in the Noble neighborhood and another distribution in the Taylor neighborhood?
I'm not sure on the criteria for selecting businesses, but
There wasn't a specific amount of money, but as part of the scoring process, location in either of the Taylor or Noble corridors was a carved out part of the scoring for the rubric.
Okay, thank you.
so here's just some notes. 2.1 has been expended on Noble for housing repairs, parks, nonprofits, and planning studies. There's another 300,000 of revenue replacement should be added to that total. That comes out of DPA and exterior repair. 4 of the 10 DPAs are in the Noble area. That only represents 31% of the funding, I think particularly because there was a double that was funded outside of that area. And then 29 of the 61 HBO projects are in the Noble area. That's over half of the expenditures for exterior repairs so far. So HBO does an excellent job facilitating repairs in both Noble and Taylor. And so does HRC. I mean, HRC is located. So that's it. Last time I had to go super fast. So I went faster than I
20
needed
minutes
to.
tonight.
20 minutes.
Any questions from the people on the screen, President Kuda or Councilor Posh?
Yeah, I'll go first, I guess. On the Coventry parking garage, I know we've already spent more than the $500,000 that was allocated in ARPA funds, but the elevator doesn't work and those concrete, I don't know what to call them, that little obstacle course in front of the entrance, that hasn't been removed. And I'm not saying that was part of the plan, but where are we gonna get money to finish what still needs to be done there? That's one question. And the second question is, can the Coventry SID use some of their money to do artwork for the garage?
So I'm showing 297,000 of the 541 for Coventry has been spent, so I don't know if that means that there's more work to be done, particularly I would assume that the elevator's part of that.
What was the figure?
297 out of 540.
Okay, then there's, okay, so
there's another
things that
150.
haven't been done yet, there's money for that.
I would assume that, yeah.
Okay. And
The other question was mural. I believe there was money in there for art, so I don't know I don't think it designates any specific place on Coventry that it has to be done, but.
I can answer that one because the SID is working with Land Studio on a bunch of different options. And so they're coming up with those different options and they'll be sharing that with us. But I don't believe that the garage was one of the things that the SID had chosen to pursue as a mural space.
I didn't quite, I think I got the essence of it, that they could spend it, the SID could spend it on artwork.
It's been on artwork, but he's saying that what he's seeing, they haven't identified the garage as one of those potential places that they're trying to narrow down to.
I see, so they're still in the process. And on the exterior repair program, one of the slides said that 2.5 million was allocated and only 270 something thousand was spent. And then another slide said something different than that.
Yes.
So I found that confusing. I have to tell you, I guess I would just say this. I would like to have a meeting at some point where, you know, I don't know that this is not really the venue to go over this with a fine tooth comb line by line. It's a really good overview and I do appreciate it, but I would still like to have.
Yeah, and I can give a real brief explanation of why there's such a difference there. So a big portion of that is $500,000 for concrete, which is, there's a bunch of projects that are lined up for that, but we feel like the majority of that's gonna be spent block by block. So that'll be a big expenditure all happening this summer. So that's 500,000 right there. The rest, let's see. So in that 2.5 million is a lot of revenue replacement, 1.7 million of it is revenue replacement. So a portion of those funds, particularly the lead funds, we're reserving until, for the drought in between grants. So either drop it in between grants or we add it to, the low cap HUD program that we used to run. So
Brian, I can't see if Coms is in the room, but I'm hoping that the city e-newsletter and however we communicate with people who might be customers for the exterior repair program, that they'll be, I'd say within a month or so, because we're, a month or so away from spring when people are, thinking about, working with contractors and getting, that work, that exterior repair work done. We'll have, we'll get that information in the next month or so that we can start spending some of this money down.
yeah, now is the time to apply because we need to get contractors in line for when, the weather breaks. So anyone that's interested, we have CDBG running and we have exterior repair running for residents.
But for the rest, I'll just, I'll go over this slide, and then I'll email any questions, additional questions I have. Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
Ryan, I have one recommendation that came in from a constituent. If we get to the point where maybe there's some money that you're looking at trying to figure out where to spend it, maybe you'll have that luxury. A suggestion was made that we find an empty vacant storefront on Noble Road in the business corridor and turn it into a maker's space so that craftspeople might be able to rent for a very small amount of money, a corner or middle of the room or whatever, to be able to have a space that they can bring their crafts in and work on it.
I think that's a worthy enough idea just to look at on its own and finding funding no matter where it comes from.
Thank you. Absolutely, I appreciate it. Anything else on this particular presentation? As I'm going to move on. Thank you
Thanks,
very
everyone.
much. Appreciate it. We'll see you again when you're ready to do it again.
Thank you.
We do need to move into executive session, so. Councilor Cobb.
I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session to A, consider the appointment of a public official, and B, consider the purchase or lease of real or personal property for public purposes or the sale or lease of city-owned real property.
Okay,
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Clerk Ballister, the roll please.
Cobb,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Posh,
Aye.
DeWitt Foy,
Yes.
Cohen. Aye. Kuda. Kuda.
Aye.
We're back on camera. So I'd like to call for the next item on the agenda is council legislative initiatives. If we can keep this to 10 minutes, I'd really appreciate it. So President Kuda, go for it.
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have anything with me, but if, since we have, how much, maybe 10 minutes?
Yeah.
To talk about it, if there's anything anybody has, I'm sure, you know, be fine with entertaining it.
Go ahead.
Well, I have one thing.
Councilor Posh, go ahead.
So,
Just do yours, please.
President Kuda, you asked me to dust off what I put together last year about an initiatives meeting and how we can, I don't know, do a retreat or whatever it's gonna be on that Sunday, one of those 2 Sundays in March. I just wanted to acknowledge that it's on my list to do, and I haven't. So I hope to have it done by this time next week for you guys to review.
Thank you, Councilor Posh. Go ahead, Councilor Cohen.
Yes, I had sent this out to council as an FYI, I think either over the weekend or on Friday. But I'd like us to consider passing a resolution that's almost identical to what the Akron City Council passed this past Monday on February 9th, which is a resolution opposing the passage of Ohio General Assembly House of Representatives Bills 2642 and 281 and Senate Bill 172. These bills, which I sent a summary out from council, actually that I think was it's prepared by the state, but Akron had provided it to their city council as well in their council materials, details the bills. And I just want to make a threshold statement that while I don't think that this council's role is to make resolutions for the sake of making statements about general events or things that happen on the federal level or things like that, these 4 bills in particular would impact our city operations and policy. And it's for that reason specifically that I wanted to see if there was a consensus among council to oppose those and communicate that opposition to the governor and our state representative and state senator.
Any comments? Go ahead, Councilor DeWitt Foy, and then Councilor Posh.
Thank you for bringing this up. I agree. I think this would be a good step. I have one draft comment, but in the second whereas clause, just removing the first 10 words or so. Starting with the positive, we don't need to even, go into what the negative connotation here. But, just starting with whereas they are an integral part of the fabric of the community, I think is a better way to word that.
And this is from Akron, so I take no pride of ownership here, but yes, I'm fine with that.
No, I think this is important. I think these bills will be harmful to Ohio and to Cleveland Heights, and I would support it.
I believe it has to be vetted by our law department though first, so. President Kuda, we're just talking about Councilor Cohen's proposal to adopt the legislation from Akron and opposing the state's bills that will be
they're under consideration.
Under
right
consideration on immigration, on what we do in the city locally. So do you have any opinion on if it should, what next step would be? Should it go to law department for vetting?
I mean, it's certainly inappropriate for council to weigh in on this. I mean, we've weighed in on state measures before, and I would support that.
Can we also have a law director? Can I finish? I'm sorry, I spoke before being recognized. A provision as to whether this is also infringing on our rights as a home rule community.
I had that in there and then that was new language. I took it out, but I can circulate it to the law director.
Sorry, I cut Jim off.
Councilor Posh.
The third whereas, I'm not sure it really provides, I think it's important to say, but I think that's a different topic than actually saying that we don't like these bills or we're not in support of the bills. What I would suggest is put the home rule thing in and take out the third whereas clause.
I'd be happy to do that if that's council, but I could go either way.
Council President Kuda, so would it behoove Councilor Cohen to introduce this to the law department through legislation at clevelandheights.gov and with these modifications that we recommend this evening and ask the law department to put it on their list of vetting?
Yeah, I mean, that's our agreement that if there were, sufficient support in committee of the whole, we would allow a council member to move it forward to the law department because it would have a chance of passing.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Well, the only thing I'd like to add is, and maybe this is to Mayor Petrus, is that if this could be vetted by the law department for our first reading next council meeting, I wouldn't want this to go longer than that just because of how the state is already undertaking. I mean, it would almost be, I don't want it to time out.
Right.
Essentially, and we may have to put this forth as an emergency measure as well if we're doing next meeting.
I would, in your email to the law
Yep.
department, note that.
Thank you, appreciate
All
it.
right. Anybody else have any legislative initiatives? Because I have one. A constituent, Adam Rossi, approached President Kuda and I about council considering legislation which would call on the Ohio legislature to approve a community energy pilot program. And it's HB 303 that has already passed the Ohio House with a 77-8 affirmative vote, so it was pretty much bipartisan, and awaits passage in the Ohio Senate. I have a sample of the legislation if council wants to see it. Mr. Rossi is proposing the council call on the state legislature of Ohio to pass legislation to allow for the creation of community energy pilot programs in Ohio, which is what the HB 303 does. Mr. Rossi is interested specifically in developing solar community energy projects for our city that would be acceptable to the state under the legislation currently before the Senate. I'm asking if my council colleagues wish to consider this legislation. Mr. Rossi is available to make a presentation on this topic at our March 3rd meeting, if acceptable, in our first March meeting and acceptable to my colleagues.
I'd be interested in learning more about it.
Can't hear you, President Kuda, you're muted.
No, I didn't say anything, thank you.
Okay. All right, so I will have Mr. Rossi and we'll put him on the committee of the whole for a short presentation. You can't hear me, that's bothering me. Well, we're almost done.
Yeah, Vice President Larson, just one other legislative question. I had when we were talking about legislative initiatives at one of our first meetings, I had talked about the change to the planning, the zoning code for the planning authority over the parks. And I just want to confirm that there was consensus because I'm happy to also submit that to legislation at Cleveland Heights Gov for them to start drafting. So I think I missed that as a process point. Is that this was to consider increasing the authority of the Planning Commission to approve or disapprove substantial changes to our parks? Because right now there is not that authority anywhere in the city, and there's no notification requirements to residents, and there's no process for public hearings that are required with substantial changes to parks.
President Kuda.
Yeah, Councilwoman, did you speak with the law department about this?
Yes, and Bill said, and that's when I sent the draft, Bill said he's open to it and he's happy to work on it if there is consensus.
And if I recall, one of the concerns is that some of the changes to Kane Park, Sledding Hill, and the Stramp and all that went through planning and then something different happened, right?
Right, because planning just gets to review, Planning Commission just gets to review. There's no decision making, and then it was changed subsequently with no oversight. Not that we don't trust this current administration, but I do think it's good practice and it's a loophole in our code.
I was just checking to see if it was the dynamic that I thought you were speaking about. And it was. I would support that because I was concerned, and not just for this or the last council or this council, but just for future councils, that the planning commission that we appoint has some authority in that the decisions they make and what goes before them is what ends up happening.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
So there's nothing in the charges for the planning commission that at this point gives them that opportunity
The code specifically says review only. But for conditional use permits and all of the other decisions that planning commission makes, it's review, approval, and disapproval.
So there's the nuance then.
Yes, and that's what I would like to see if we can fix, but then we would also need to create review conditions
Yeah.
for the planning commission, which I've also drafted, and that would be part of the discussion. Again, no pride of ownership, but we need a starting point.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm certainly open to having that conversation. I wanna know more before endorsing or not
Yeah.
and having that conversation, but no issues with starting it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about in terms of like what those conditions would be and what the review, there's places for us that, not predetermined.
I think Parks is kind of a unique
Yeah.
situation in that it doesn't really apply for, a conditional use permit or not. So how we're evaluating it's certainly worthwhile.
I also think that those specific examples need to be addressed because that was that's what happened when those large projects came forward and there was that missing piece. So I'd like to explore that as well and see how we can, working with the administration, of course, with what we can come up with. So you'll be sending it out to legislation?
Yeah, I'll send you the.
All right, anything else for the good of the order this evening? Right, I am going to call adjournment of this meeting at 7:23 and we'll see you in council chambers.